Hi everyone and welcome to Dean Park. I've got a busy update for you this month, but before I get to that, I'd just like to thank you all for your positive feedback on my Pico twist lock point motor video. If you've not yet seen that video, the pop-up banner is at the top of the screen now. September traditionally marks the start of the model railway season as our attics, sheds and garages cool down just that little bit to allow us to get back in there and start working on our hobby. And I've been busy since the start of the month doing several jobs around the layout, which will hopefully allow me to progress with slightly bigger jobs into the late autumn and early winter. So I'll share those with you in a moment. Just like to remind you, if you want to be notified of all future uploads from the channel, click on that notification bell, and if you've not already done so, please subscribe to the channel and become part of the Dean Park community. So without further ado, what have I got for you in this month's update? I tackled the last section of Dean Park to be ballasted here at the West End. I explained some changes to the lineside detail prior to the ballasting. I purchase, improve and fit these drivers to a Accurascales Class 92. And finally, I share some of my plans of what I've got lined up for the coming month here at Dean Park. I recently purchased these Accurascale Class 92 drivers to go in the 92 model that I've got here. The one on the left is how you receive the drivers, and these have been 3D printed in colour, quite a revolutionary new technology that's improving all the time, which I'll prove when I show you the newly purchased Class 66 drivers, again from Accurascale. However, looking at the model on the left, it's a bit washed out and grey. As one person commented, it's greyer than John Major's spitting image puppet. And I have to agree, it is a bit washed out and a bit grey. It doesn't look too healthy, does he? So what I've done is I've just given it a quick coat of paint, mainly in acrylics, just to lift the detail that's on the superb 3D printed model, I have to say. And it just looks a lot better, looks more alive. Not complicated or difficult at all. I just use a range of Tamiya paints, light flesh from the Vallejo range for the hands and face, and I used Rail Match Orange for the high-vis jacket. I'm not going to try and put in the silver stripes on the jacket, you'll not really see it from inside the cab. These crew are specifically moulded to fit into the driver and second man seat on the Class 92 model from Accurascale. So I'm going to see how easy it is to get the body off this 92, fit the drivers, and I'm sure it'll look a lot better for it when it's on the track. The body came off fairly easily. There's 4 clips, 2 each end, just behind the cab doors there. You just prise them apart and lift them off. Now I wasn't quite sure how to do this, but it's fully detailed in the instructions given, and if you go onto the Accurascale website to the Let's Get Involved section, it takes you through body removal and driver fitting for this particular model, and indeed a range of Accurascale models, which is really good to see. It's a quick protocol. You have to search on YouTube for somebody else who's done it. Accurascale have taken care of that for us. The cab removal wasn't quite so easy as the body. I went onto the Accurascale website and it gave me instructions how to do this, but I was literally cacking myself trying to remove the cab. It's very tight, lots of detail in there as well, and I was really, I was bricking it in case I broke something on the model. Luckily I've managed to do it eventually with a wee bit of swearing and persuasion, and it gives you a really good look at the detailed cab Accurascale have designed. So once you've got the cab off, fitting the driver is relatively easy. It's a tight fit, so you actually don't need any blue tack or glue to hold the driver in position. What you've got to do is you've got to slide him back into the seat. You might notice from his left arm there, just below the elbow, there's a little cutout of the actual 3D print, and that fits into the gap for the armrest. So they really are designed neatly to go into the Accurascale models cab seats. It's now time to put the cab back into the body shell. I'm not going to film that. I think it's cruel to video somebody having a nervous breakdown, but once I get the cab back in and the body back on, I'll let you see the driver in the cab on the track. Well, that's the body now back on. It all went together really easily, including putting the cab back in position. And as you can see there with the cab light on, the newly painted driver looks the part in his brand new Class 92 cab. The Class 92 from Accurascale is one of my favourite models. It's certainly the most impressive with its twin operating pantograph, and I do like to enjoy running it around Dean Park. So let's get some shots of it now, back in action with the new driver fitted. As I mentioned at the start of this feature, technology is always improving, and the same is the case when it comes to 3D printing figures for your Locos. Accurascale's models are supplied by Model U, and the Class 92 from an earlier batch is rather faded and muted with regard to its colour, but the new Class 66 crew are far more vibrant and realistic. And this is a sign of technology continually improving, and in this case pretty quickly. So goodness knows when we'll get to a stage where we're looking at figures that look better than hand painted ones. I'm sure it's not too far over the horizon. I'm now at the stage of ballasting the very last tracks here at Dean Park, and for that I'm using Woodland Scenic's medium ballast in a grey blend, mixed in with some fine ballast, also of the grey blend colour. Just gives a bit of variation to the actual appearance and the size of the stones within that ballast mix. This area's got quite a deep ballast shoulder due to the super elevation or the cant on the track, and for those of you watching and not sure what that means, well, it means that the track is not totally horizontal, it's tilted up a little bit at the outside edge, and this allows the trains in real life to go around the curves at higher speeds. What does this mean in terms of my curve here at Dean Park? Well, it's quite a deep ballast shoulder in terms of the amount of ballast required to cover the cork edging, so it looks quite deep in places, but if you look on the real railways, when there's a cant or elevation in the track, that's what has to be in place to support the track work when the locomotives and rolling stock are going over it. So it'll look very realistic when it's all done and weathered down. My mainline tracks sit on top of 2mm cork, and with regard to the curve it sits on a foam riser as well, just to give that elevation around the curve. That gives it quite a deep ballast shoulder, as would be seen on the real main lines around the British Rail network. So there's quite a fall off to the side, which will eventually be undergrowth, weeds, low-lying bushes and static grass. In the past when I've ballasted, I've got the line side trunking here for all your cabling, and I'd put these orange conduit pipes to carry the wiring through from one side of the tracks across to the other and then on through the trunking there. However, it's been pointed out to me that in some cases that's not prototypical or authentic, so I've decided for the main lines on the upper section to change approach for the latest stage of ballasting, which I'll show you now. What I've done at this section is I've taken out the orange conduit and I've replaced it with these kind of manhole sections, and what will happen is the cabling would come through out of the end of the trunking, down underneath the track via these manholes and out the other side. That would keep it at a greater depth from the top of the railhead, and it would avoid damage from rolling stock and locomotives constantly pounding the tracks above. I've been assured this is more prototypically correct. It's not as visually impressive because it's quite nice to have the orange conduit, but it varies it from other parts of the layout. I've already completed one full track here at Dean Park, including the little cess in the middle of the tracks. I put a thin layer in there just to cover the baseboard, which was already painted in an earthy brown colour anyway. I'll not show you the full process on the outer loop, I'll just do little snippets for you, because in the past I've done videos on ballasting and indeed ballasting a turnout. So I'll put the pop-up banners in the top right hand side of the screen if you want to refer back to those to see the ballasting process in a little bit more detail and depth. If you have any questions about what you see with regard to this ballasting, please do get in touch in the comment section below. With the ballast spreader full, I'm going to slowly trundle it along the top of the rails, and it will deposit the ballast at either side and in the middle between the two tracks. Usually you'll get about 2 feet worth of ballasting out of one container. This is a green scene ballast spreader. However, because I'm sitting on such a high level of cork with the foam risers underneath for the super elevation, I'm only going to get maybe a foot to 18 inches out of the ballast container. So I'm going through more ballast, but I need that to give a realistic look and to cover the exposed edges of the cork and foam below. That appears to have covered the exposed side of the cork there, and on this side, if anything does expose itself as I tamp the ballast down, I'll just go along with the teaspoon of ballast and fill in any gaps. What I like to do first is I used a kind of shortened brush that I just cut the end of the bristles off and remove any excess from the top. By going at a slower rate, I tend to dump more ballast in between the two tracks, but that's a trade-off with trying to get the sides covered, I suppose. So it's easy enough to just move it along with the brush like this. Now I actually see a tiny little bit of the exposed cork there, so take my ballast with a teaspoon and just tap a little bit on the outer rail there to build up a slight mound, a little gap there where the join is between the previous ballasted part and the new bit. That looks okay. A little bit here just to continue it. Right, it's now time to just take your finger, edge of your finger, and run it along the outer side of the rail on the sleepers. Just go like this. And what that does, it pushes the ballast off the top of the sleepers and creates the realistic raised ballast shoulder. Like so. The final part, or the next stage anyway, is to gently tap the top of the rails with a brush or the handle of a screwdriver, but be careful, don't do it too much. You don't want to damage the top of your track. What that does is it tamps the ballast into position, it removes more of it from the top of the sleepers and exposes any parts along the shoulder that you might need to patch in. Apart from that, it's done. Neaten it on, move to the next part and continue the process again and again. It really is as simple as that. A top tip that I'd recommend trying when laying a ballast shoulder onto quite a deep cork is I run a small bead of ballast along the side of the cork, just using a teaspoon. The benefit of that is when the ballast comes out of the spreader, it's not got quite so far to fall from the cork to the baseboard, so you're less likely to get an exposed cork edge after running the ballast spreader past. It gives a more realistic ballast shoulder and it saves a lot of time, as you don't have to go back and sprinkle more ballast onto the top of the sleepers and then tamp it all down again. You're just kind of doing the job at the beginning. What I'm doing now is I'm soaking the ballast with a mist of water just from a squishy bottle, and then I'm going to take a 60-40 mix of PVA to water, 60% being PVA, with a few drops of washing up liquid in there just to break down the surface tension of the ballast, and then I'm going to go back and forth with my squishy bottle and just saturate the ballast, and then don't touch it. Give it a few days just to set and go off before you do anything else to the track. Well, that's 48 hours since I applied the glue to the ballast, and it's dried solid, albeit I've had a couple of pretty good days weather-wise, with the temperature in the loft's been about 18-19 degrees, so that always helps. I can now run trains on this again. A quick clean over the railhead with a track rubber wouldn't go amiss, just to get any residue that's perhaps on the top of the railhead, but really from here it's weathering next to really blend the track in and make it more realistic. The section around the Nairn factory is an area that I've really been putting off doing for too long now, but I decided to finally bite the bullet and use some corrugated fencing from Goodwood Scenics. In the next few clips I'll show you how that fence goes together and how I managed to work it all into the scene. As I mentioned in the previous clip, this fencing is from the Goodwood Scenics range, and they've got an ever-growing and impressive range of line-side accessories and kits. For this fence I went for the individual fencing panels. You get different sizes available, and these are finished in a rusty paint, and it does tend to flake off and chip, which actually adds to the realistic appearance of the fence. I also went for some brand new panels, and these just come in aluminium, just like the rusty ones. They're actually made from aluminium, but before I fitted these to the fence I just took a bit of matte varnish from an aerosol just to tone down the sheen on the brand new fence panels. The fencing itself is made up of wire, and it's been treated in this rust paint finish as well, and I just glued the overlapping panels to one side. You're better doing it on the side where the three wires are flush, and not on the side where the wire, the verticals actually protrude from the horizontal. So there is a front and a back to it, if you like. What I did with mine is I used individual panels obviously, and I just overlapped the last corrugation of each one. So I started at left hand end and then kind of layered it as I went. It's very discreet, but that's how the fencing is made in real life, and it gives the appearance that I want. Say you don't want to faff around with individual parts, Goodwood Scenics do provide a single sheet of aluminium just to stick onto the fencing if that's what you want to do. But for this I just wanted to use the individual panels to give that overlapped appearance. But it really is up to you. Both are available and both look great. Fitting the fence was really easy. Drill a series of holes in the baseboard and gently lower the fence into it. The metal framing and the legs going into the baseboard are nice and sturdy, but if you do have to adjust them a little bit to line up with the holes, that is possible as well. I then blended the bottom of the fence in with the line side with some undergrowth, static grass, coarse turf, some seafoam offcuts from trees, and then some bushes as well. This is an area that I've yet to completely detail. I'll be showing you some paint skips in the next clip, and I'll be adding forklift truck, some yard debris, and the usual junk lying around. I have, however, got some weeds and static grass and coarse turfs encroaching onto the tarmac area just to take off that clean edge, and that continues all the way along the front of the fencing around the boundary. This is the other end of the Nairn scene, and the corner part of the fence has been blended in with some more undergrowth, weeds and low-lying static grass. And as the shot goes off to the right hand side, the embankment builds round to the gas towers. Zooming out from the shot, I'm glad that I now added some of the new panels into this rusty fencing. And while each panel on the rusty part is individual and it does give a nice variation, it's nice to have some new panels in there just for added realism as well. Hopefully with the ballasting on the upper main lines and the new OHLE going in, this will complete the scenic area around this part of the layout, and I'll be able to get some really nice shots of the Locos going round the sweeping curves. What do you think of this Goodwood Scenic fencing? Have you tried it yourself? Please let me know in the comment section below. At the Nairn Linoleum Works in Kirkcaldy, they often use pigments and dyes to obviously colour the flooring that they were making, and they were transported around in these paint skips. and these were often moved around using a forklift truck. Now these have been designed and 3D printed for me by Tiltbridge Models, also known as Ian McCready, and he's also the creator of the Blair Athol towards Dromoctor exhibition layout. Now, this layout's also nominated at the Hornby Magazine Awards for this year, and it's certainly got my vote. It's always a crowd pleaser when Ian takes this layout to any show. I've just primed these in grey just now, but looking at the image on the screen you can see them all stacked up at the actual Nairn factory in Kirkcaldy back in the day. So I'm going to work out a suitable colour and weathering for these and have them stacked up around the yard to try and replicate the image in the photo. Thanks to Ian for helping me out with these. They really are impressive, and I can't wait to get them all scattered around to finish the look of the yard. What I'll be doing over the next few months is about really focusing my attention at the west end of the layout and building up the scenery. And I'll start with this area here. Obviously I've done the scenery at the back. I'll start bringing it forward. Now that the tracks are ballasted, I can get scenery right up to the track area. My intention is also to fit some West Hill Wagon Works OHLE equipment there when it eventually arrives. Then obviously all the scenic material will blend in with that. There'll be an embankment put along here, but this will not be worked on this winter. That's a kind of future year's job, and I'll kind of cover that more as I kind of pan the camera out. This area here is quite a large site, and I'm going to use it to be a continuation of the Nairn's linoleum factory. In Kirkcaldy, the Nairn's factory took up a massive area of the town, and I hope to replicate that here at the west end of Dean Park. So more factories will go in here. This won't be a job, as I've said, for this particular winter, as I've got other areas to work on, but I've already started planning about the scratch builds, which there will be many of in this area of the layout. As you can see just now, I've got no back scene in place. I'll put the backboards up there with brand new back scenes, and that will run right the way from the gas towers along the back of the wall and to the other corner at the west end. I'll also be working on this area here with tunnel portals, embankments and shallow retaining walls, maybe a little signal box, to really give a Princess Street Gardens in Edinburgh feel as the trains kind of make their way through this cutting. And that's kind of the focus for, should say, the turn of the year into the spring. So yeah, I've got plans for this part, and hopefully when it's done it'll tie in nicely with the upper main lines and all the embankments around here. The area at the front of the shot just now will be an office kind of complex, again linked to the industrial part of the factory. I've already got a drawing on the board just now for a future scratch build, similar to one that was on the Nairn site in Kirkcaldy. With them all being scratch built along this part of the layout, it's going to take me a long time to do. My scratch builds can take up to 6 months to do, depending on their complexity and the time I've got available. But I'm not going to rush it because I want a bespoke view here, so I'm going to try and avoid ready to plant buildings. Sure, use equipment and accessories from the likes of Scenecraft and Goodwood Scenics to kind of supplement the detail that I'm doing on my scratch builds, but I'm really focused on trying to get something quite unique here. For years when I've done filming around the station, I've tried to avoid showing the area above and behind the tunnel entrances to the station because it's not been detailed with any scenic material or buildings. I mean, that's the whole reason behind wanting quite a grand office complex there. I feel it would tie in better with the grandeur of the station and not just have some old kind of sooty rundown factory in the background as you see the trains coming into the station. If you're familiar with Edinburgh, they've got the National Galleries of Scotland which sit above the mound and the trains go underneath, and the office block that I've kind of got on the planning table just now will hopefully be fitting to have in this area of the layout and tie in nicely with the station. And finally, at this corner of the layout, it's going to be a council housing estate. I'm already in the process of making some scratch builds for that, and I've got a kind of grounds plan of what I want: car parks, grassy areas, play parks, trees, overgrown areas, and obviously the council housing as well. It kind of links into the kind of urban industrial area that I've got, and I've taken the actual scratch builds that I'm making just now from houses that are situated in the town of Kirkcaldy as well. So yeah, I'm trying to keep the theme quite local with the Nairn factory. So as you can see from what I've just said, there's a lot of work still to be done here at the West End, but hopefully I'll make serious inroads to the back parts of the West End, and I'll start moving the scenery forward. It'll keep me going for a few months, if not years, especially with the scratch building taking so long, but I like to take my time, and as I said back in video number 1, I'm not going to rush it, the joy is in the journey for me. I'm not into just making progress to get a video up. I'll make progress for the good of the layout and when I can fit it into my busy kind of lifestyle. So I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen today, and I've got a little taste of what's coming in the future, and I really appreciate your support and staying with me to watch the progress here at Dean Park. Well, that's it for this video. I really do hope you've enjoyed watching, and I've got something from it that you can use on your own layouts at home. With regard to the ballasting, once you've honed that technique of yours, it really is straightforward, and doing it is quite therapeutic as well. I'll be going through some weathering techniques with regard to the ballasting in a future video, so stay tuned for that. If you want to see more content from the channel, click on the links on the screen now, and also click on that notification bell to be alerted of all future uploads from the channel. In the meantime, thanks for watching, enjoy your modelling, and cheers for now.